Next question. So there are five types of brain waves. So why we are discussing brain waves? Because brain waves are measurable, observable. Brain and mind are very closely interconnected. Each influence each other. Mind is subtle, brain is gross, but brain and mind are very closely interconnected. So scientists have measured beta wave, alpha, beta, theta, and delta. Beta waves are slightly faster. Our waking state is beta waves. Theta and delta are deep sleep waves. Gamma wave is when we are highly focused. So currently, when we interact, we are operating in a beta wave. So now let us think our brain as a computer. The brain is not a biological computer. So the computer has two modes. One is programming mode and user mode. Our brain is very good in programming in theta or delta when the brain waves are slower. So theta and delta are the states of the brain for good programming. The child up to a certain age has theta and delta waves in the waking state also. The mind is calm. So that's why it's able to absorb all surroundings very easily without much discrimination. So our deep-rooted vasanas and samskaras happen in our childhood. They go deep, and that drives our life. So now, once programming happens, then after that you are only execution mode. The programs operate in your life. So as we move from theta and delta waves, we start getting into beta waves, where our day-to-day life and programming, deep-rooted programming is over. Our operating system is set. Your emotional states, all those things are set. Now what is there is user mode. You can learn some English, physics, mathematics, chemistry, but deep inside your structure is deep-rooted programs are already established in the alpha, beta, delta, and theta mode. So who established these programs? Your parents, your family, your immediate circumstances, your close friends, early stage, maybe television. They establish the deep-rooted programs, samskaras. Then after your life, after certain point of life, you are only executing these programs. I'm getting angry. I don't know why I'm getting angry. Some persons are disturbed. Some persons are not disturbed. We can't understand why the difference is there. Same situation, people react in different ways. The deep-rooted programs, samskaras, are operating. So now, as a child, there's no ego. Our ego is in dormant condition. But family, society, circumstances start programming the child. Then ego develops, conscious mind. And ego is important. A healthy ego is very important because that helps you to make a living, grow up in society, earn some livelihood, live in an ethical way, make your living. A healthy ego is very important. Ego can be unhealthy also, depending on the programs. So when this programming happened, you didn't have any conscious choice. It just happened to your life. Maybe you carried forward some past life impressions also. Some early life programming happens. This we call as samskara. Samskara is nothing but a Sanskrit word for program. Fortunately, for many of us can have good samskara. Some people, unfortunate people, may have bad samskara also. They can't say. Imagine a child born in a very crime-prone area, a very violent area. The child has no choice. The programming has happened. So some of us are born in some good families, some good samskaras are imbibed. And many of our people are born in India. The samskaras or programs of the India called Mukti, Karma Yoga, they get deep inside us. That's called Guru Samskara. Some people born in another country which is very materialistic, the materialism samskaras are get imbibed, deep rooted. So now, a healthy ego is very important for a good life. But at some point of time, the ego becomes irrelevant. Now you want to go back to the God, your original state. Ego is required for you to play a human role. Dropping of the ego is required to merge with the divine, realize the God. So we have two phases. Formation of ego, early stages. Maturity of the ego as we grow, as we experience life. Then in the spiritual life, you have to drop the ego. The next stage. Ego itself is not enemy. Ego is required. We have seen a coconut. The coconut has a green kernel when you fresh green shell husk when you fetch from the tree. That has no role. It is required to protect the white kernel inside. So then inside there's a shell. There's a double layer protection, double protection for the coconut. What is real coconut is the inside white husk, white kernel, but it's protected by a thick shell outside and green husk outside. Both are required. Our ego is like that. For initial stages, there's a protection is required for us. Ego is like protection. But the coconut, when it falls into the ground and it finds a right circumstance, it will sprout. The inner kernel, white kernel, will come out and becomes a coconut tree. So that time shell has to be broken. No longer shell is valid. If the shell is there, then coconut cannot become a tree. Similarly, your ego is required, healthy ego is required up to some point. And after that, ego has to drop. Otherwise, it will not give you spiritual evolution. There's a place, there's a time surrender has to happen. There's a time spiritual journey begins. And the time ego breaks. A coconut will sprout in a favorable circumstance. Then the husk will break, the shell will break, and similarly, your ego will break in unfavorable circumstances. When the pressure is too high, ego cannot sustain it. Then it will start breaking down. Then you think of, oh, higher consciousness, God, or then something sprouts in you. Spiritual evolution starts. So first part of our life is to develop the ego. Second part of the life is to drop the ego. This is the spiritual. This is our life. So now dropping the ego, there's a challenge. Our deep-rooted vasanas and samskaras, which are programmed with the beta state, we cannot drop them easily. Because you are not gone to programming. You know only user mode. Ego knows only user mode. So that's where your prayers, meditation make silent, mind silent. When the silent mind is there, from progressing from beta, you go to alpha. So alpha, you go to theta or delta. Then some deep-root programs gets unrooted. And new programs comes in picture. The spiritual teaching of Guru, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana is going deeper. The best Nididhyasana happens when the mind is silent. It goes into deep subconscious, uprooting earlier programs. So how to go to alpha? To go to alpha is very simple. Some of the simple meditation practices can take you to alpha. Alpha is actually a state where more creativity is there and more intuitive powers will manifest, mind powers like telepathy or something. So, and beta and theta and delta, if you're able to reach in the waking state, it's called Jagrata Sushupti or Samadhi. Deep unconditioning happens. Jagrata Sushupti, waking sleep or Samadhi, is your brain has reached beta waves, but you are fully awake, just like a child. Child is fully awake, but in theta and delta stage. Just like the child, theta and delta state you have reached in the waking state, then your deep subconscious programs can get altered. This is called yoga nidra or samadhi. All those things are there to make your reach the subconscious, restructure the subconscious. So that can happen even before going to sleep. If you are able to, whatever you think, contemplate, meditate, that goes into theta and delta state. That goes into deep. That's why what you think before you go to sleep is very important. If you think of spiritual truths, I am Brahman, I am pure awareness, your deep sleep can be samadhi. That can go into deep sleep state. A theta or delta state is which structures your deep-rooted programs. You're going to programming mode. That's why people say samadhi. Samadhi is required to remove the impressions. Now, what will happen in samadhi? Your mind becomes silent. Then your mind becomes silent. You become one with the cosmic consciousness, universal consciousness. Some deeper intuition opens up, depending on your belief system, depending on your structures which are already there. Some structures get loosened. The God consciousness starts manifesting in your life. That's how the deities get activated. So people worship deities. The deity worship, if they happen, do in beta state. Beta state is used for physical interactions. So it doesn't impact deeply. But if it goes in alpha state or theta and delta state, the deeper activation of the deity happens in your life. That's why samadhi is required. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says to go into bhava samadhi. Okay. Any questions? Beta. Which you're asking now. If your mind is active about, am I in what state now? So typically, if your mind is very active, a lot of thoughts of past and future, you're in beta. If your mind is silent and mind is creative, you're in alpha. If your mind is deeply silent, you are in theta or delta. So, in Vedantic teaching, there is a saying, Shravana matrena muktihi. Listening alone can liberate you. But this listening is not in beta state. Beta state listening is only at superficial level of consciousness. When you are completely surrendered to the master's teaching, so beta is gone, then you come into alpha possibly. So then you are fully attentive to teaching. In beta state, lot of critical mind works. What should be done, what should not be done, this is right or wrong and all. Alpha state, mind will become creative mode. And if you are very tuned, very silent, very serene, very attentive to the master, you can as well go into theta or delta with the eyes open. So then what will happen? There's no master and student. That's a transmission of wisdom. That's called Diksha, initiation. In the transmission of wisdom, Shravana Matrena Mukti means whatever teaching is there, it just doesn't go from here to here. It goes deep inside. And that opens up Mukti, Jnana. So in alpha state, in beta state, okay, what you hear can go from here. Here can go from ear. That's beta state. That typically happens when husband and wife talk. You are perfectly in deep beta state. Okay. It can go and here understanding can happen in beta state. In alpha state, here and here it can go slightly down into deeper consciousness. In theta and delta, hearing can go deeper, restructuring your deep-rooted impressions. So that is called Shravana. The Shravana happens when the master and disciple are in tune. There's no master and disciple, only teaching is there. That's called Shravana Matrena Mukti. Any questions? Any questions for people on Zoom? So if there are no questions, we'll stop this recording.
Hariom Guruji, Shobana here.
Yes, Shobana.
Beautiful explanation, Guruji. There are no questions at all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.